So then, we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the very original documents from the Hebrews of old, from the time of the prophets, giving us then understanding of the future, what would bring us as nations and kingdoms. And then we understand the time that we are in, a time of rebuilding. As such, then we begin to line up ourselves and being wise on how to act, and making sure we are then in harmony with this new plan and a new area of understanding, so then we can relate with others with a harmony also, because it's a very important understanding the end of times and the utmost leadership of China as being the ultimate leader of the secular market. We can start making decisions then, having them in mind, and then making sure we understand the plan of the end. Many governments, they are experiencing areas where they begin to have very unpolite talks in governments, and we must understand what it means of living in harmony. It's obviously understanding from the viewpoint of the latest news regarding Australia, for instance. We are receiving news regarding then the Parliament not being on the same page, so to speak, and people are not very relying upon them because they are not having nice friendships. And it's important for this great country understanding their duties in the future, as then a country would be obviously in charge of the entire Pacific region, as then coming up with a leadership on how then to maintain those islands that are drowning from going under. It's truly not a time where great leaders, capable people, would be then skirmishing with so tiny problems regarding sexism and words and then childish sort of a influence. There are other areas much more important than these, and countries that are then from English speaking people should be more aware of these tiny situations and put them aside, and then coming up with strong plans for the future, because the economy is very much set in place. It's very uncomfortable reading news and people not acting properly in very important positions of government, and then fighting and then pointing fingers and speaking names and swearing and those types of environments. It's very uncomfortable watching those news. So then the greatest plan at the moment, as we understand from the time that we are living in, we can understand also then politicians coming together and resolving the world's at least path of the future. And there are many factors going on in Europe. For instance, the euro, we know for sure it's going to break. And then many of those countries, they have to have leadership and pointing them to the proper direction. And then the islands of the Pacific, they are drowning. They have to have also help. And forming friendship of the Pacific in a centralized area would help tremendously, because as we understand, China is going to be extremely busy for the next years, and they won't have time for skirmishes. It makes no sense. As we understand, they are extremely organized, and then we do our part to make sure they are not bothered. But then we should have then a plan together, a plan of action, where then when they are contacted for international help, at least they have a concise plan, and then obviously not scandalizing around with other areas so minute. And obviously the Creator is always pro-life, and government should be wise and should hire people for positions of responsibility, always pro-life and never against life. Because then the author of life, he is for life. So then if there are leaders regarding then abortion as an option is extremely uncomfortable and very wrong. It is rather, from the Gentiles' understanding, always prevention and never destruction. So then, based upon these, then there are lots of situations that can be easily resolved, and then going on with other plans much more important. And we are very grateful that the great Creator Yahweh has given us the end of the times plan, so then we can adjust our schedules and our agendas with His agenda. So then we are in line and harmony of the years ahead. As far as the news coming up, lots of areas where the world then is understanding more and more and more the great plan of the end, and then we ourselves, then we do our share, we do our part. At this very moment, then there are many areas in our own country where then we are much more aware of the future plans. In Europe, they have also an idea what's coming in the future, and we should be working as a team from country to country, because there is no more reason for war. We understand the plan of the future, and then obviously we should then adjust ourselves and try to help other people. And these other skirmishes, so tiny comparing with the global team, is nearly ridiculous, so to speak. So then we adjust ourselves and trying to be English-speaking people, responsible as we always were. But then there is another player in the game, much more organized, and we should maintain the pace, because this, in fact, is the decision of the future. So then, obviously, the news in the future is going to be then much more responsible and much more polite. Please stay tuned, much more coming up, because there are other areas of the renewed covenant we can analyze, and then we begin to understand how was then the government during the time of the nation of Israel when they were obedient. What were then the great understandings of Shlomo when he was then the king, and what caused him to be so loved and received by the Creator himself. So we're going to study those areas then shortly, and please stay tuned.